To summarize the past year with the greenhouse, the success and failures that I have, some of the problems that I came up with, and some of the solutions that I did to solve them. Most of the problems that I had, the failures, usually due to my lack of knowledge and experience, and being able to identify the problem at the early onset. If you can identify the problems early, you can eliminate some major devastations that you might have. So listing some of the problems that I came up with, I've had the sump pump fail, and what I ended up having to do is put in a larger sump pump. A larger pump doesn't necessarily work as hard as a smaller one. I had the heater pump fail. I had 4 heater pumps failed the first through the winter, and the heat is absolutely needed to keep the tilapia alive. They require 80 to 86 degree temperature. What I found out was I was using too large of a pump for this heater, and it was overworking. A smaller pump worked much more efficient, less power consumption, and much more reliable. The solution, in addition to that, is if it's a mechanical or electrical item, keep a spare part on hand, because I believe anything mechanical is going to fail, or electrical. I had an undersized air pump. I needed to upgrade the air pump, so I purchased a larger air pump. Drip tubes continuously plugging in the grow towers. Grow towers, I believe, are initially designed for hydroponics, where you don't have solids suspended in the liquids. So what I found really helped a lot was a wire that was the same diameter of the inside of the drip tube, and that it has been used as a ram to clean out those drip tubes. It works very efficiently. Also, I installed a pre-filter for I have a separate pump that feeds the grow towers. This pre-filter I elevated to the top level of the sump tank water, so it should not be picking up the solids that may be collecting at the bottom of the sump tank. So just by doing that, really made less maintenance on cleaning those drip tubes. The other thing that I experimented with is the flushing tank for 1/3 of my grow towers, and I'm seeming to have a very positive effect with that system. Occasionally had the grow beds overflow, and probably 3 or 4 different times. And when they overflow, I'm usually surprised when I come down. My entire walkway will be flooded. It will be soaking wet. And then I have to locate which tanks, grow beds, are actually leaking. And in every situation except one, it was due to roots growing and blocking the lines. And a routine maintenance, it should be on a schedule that you go and cut the roots by rotating the vertical stone barriers that's in the grow beds. By turning those, any roots that are penetrating into those will be cut, and then you just pull those out. The one time I had a tower overflowing, and it had an airlock from the 4-inch barrier that goes around the bell siphon, the standpipe and bell siphon. And the cap, the 4-inch cap, they're not glued, they slid over, and extremely tight, and I couldn't get it off, and it had an airlock which was defaulting the bell siphon. So I did a modification on those caps where I cut out 2 sections on either side of the cap, and the cap slides on very easily. It slides on and off, and it doesn't create a airlock in there. In the early spring, I had ordered a shade cloth, and a 40% sunblock is what's recommended for vegetables. And this cloth, I knew I was going to need it because when I was building the greenhouse in the summer, there were no plants in here, but I was working. The temperature would increase to 120 degrees with fans running and with my sides of the greenhouse rolled up. That is extremely hot. Well, this spring we had a early hot day, and the temperature inside the greenhouse went up to 109 degrees, and it cooked probably more than half of all the plants, really devastated the plants. The solution was the shade cloth. Once I put that up, even on the hottest day, you won't get above the mid-80s inside the greenhouse, and that's as hot as it has ever gotten. So that's a very needed item. Fungus gnats was devastation to all of my plants, and this was very early on when I started planting. And I had a lot of plants doing really well, tomatoes doing excellent, beans climbing all the way to the middle of the greenhouse ceiling. I misdiagnosed what the fungus gnats were, and so that's ignorance on my part. When I finally did realize what they were, I found the quick organic cure, and it was parasitic nematodes. And I ended up having to do 2 different treatments with the parasitic nematodes, and within a week or 2, all of the gnats were knocked out. And then it was a matter of replanting and starting over. So knowing your pests is a real big plus, and that's, like I said, my ignorance. The other thing that in the spring was a constant daily battle is squishing slugs, and that was daily routine. Slug traps, most people know that you just use beer in a shallow container, and the slugs are attracted to the beer. They crawl in and drown. The beer gets expensive even if you're buying the cheaper beer. Very cheap solution is to use sugar, water, and brewer's yeast or baking yeast. And that fermentation process is what is attracting the slugs, and that would be the cheap way instead of buying beer and dumping beer out. A solution or a problem with my grow towers was water leaking out of the cup holders. The easy solution, the very effective solution to that is keeping the grow cups or net pots filled and plants in them, and even the better solution is making the styrofoam collars that I wrap around the plant crown and stick in there, and all the water that enters the top of the tube exits through the bottom of the tube into the drain system. Problem I have with the towers is my towers, when I designed the setup, I have them 6 foot in width. That 6 foot width is too long to reach. You can effectively reach about 2 foot, 2.5 foot in from either side. So the center of the grow tower area is basically ineffective, and I wasn't using that. My solution to that, because of my system, I can't cut the 6 foot down, is 2 rows of towers, then skip 1 row. That allows me a little aisle that I can walk down between the rows and tend to all the towers. A problem that I had early on is my water usage, depleting water level in the sump tank. I would have to monitor that, check it about every 2, possibly 3 weeks. I would have to run my garden hose into the tank and top it up. I would forget, and then I would get to a low level where the pumps wouldn't be picking everything up. My solution to that was installing a self-leveling device into the sump tank, and it has worked flawlessly from the time I put it into the tank. The walkways, this is the mechanics of the greenhouse. When I built the greenhouse, I laid down a plastic barrier underneath the entire greenhouse, then covered it with gravel. Anytime we have a real hard rain, the rainwater coming off of the roof gets underneath the greenhouse and it will flood my walkways. And the solution to that is just to finish bricking the walkways, and the bricks stay dry. They're a little bit elevated and it makes a clean walkway. So that's one of my projects that I have to tend to. Some of the pests that I had a family of moles. I had 6 moles that got into my system, into my grow beds, and I don't know where they were hiding or going, but anytime I would plant a seed, I would never see one sprout, and that's because the seeds disappeared. The moles were getting the seeds and eating them. I tried sticky traps, and occasionally that would catch one, but the most effective way is I have these red Dixie cups in each of my grow beds, and they're deep. I would throw a couple seeds in the bottom of these cups in every one of the grow beds, and within 2 to 3 days I had caught every one of the moles that were in here. There is no more moles in the greenhouse. Problems with the fish house. Okay, I had a large fish kill. I had 100 catfish doing extremely well. Within a 4-day time period, all of the fish perished. Then I had panfish start dying, and then I had some trout that were really good size, 19 to 20 some inch in length. I had 6 of those in one tank, and they all perished. And the tilapia, they were starting to get sick, and I never did identify what the disease was. I was guessing at ick and a few other things. The tilapia all pulled through. What I did with the tilapia is I increased the water temperature from 80 to 86 degrees. And this elevated temperature, whatever was bothering the fish, it knocked it out of the tilapia. And the tilapia are doing well. They propagated, and I have a second tank with about 100 to 200 little fry of tilapia in that tank. What I learned from this is you don't introduce wild fish into your system, which is what I did, and I'm sure that's what brought in the disease or parasite that killed the fish. If you introduce any fish, you should have a quarantine tank, either an aquarium. It doesn't have to be long, but large. It just has to be large enough that you can keep your fish in there for a few weeks to a month to monitor them, to make sure that they are healthy. The same with introducing plants. You should not introduce wild plants out of your garden, bringing them in. You have a real good chance of bringing disease or pests in with them. The best habit to do is start all your plants from your own seeds or cuttings. But I don't hold that real strict. I still sneak things in. I had a large fish kill of my baby tilapia. I had about 200 real small tilapia in a 5-gallon tank. We had a power outage that lasted about 5 hours, and that's not a problem with any of the plants. and it shouldn't have been a problem with the 250-gallon tanks. However, I had one fish, a tilapia, jump out of the large tank that I found in the morning, and I'm sure that was from low oxygen level. And the small 5-gallon with the 200 tilapia, they all died, and it's because of no filtration and no air pump running. Solution to that is a backup battery pump, and you can use a bilge pump from a boat, 12-volt bilge pump. That could circulate the water and at least aerate it long enough that the fish are not going to die, and your power will come back on. I also have a power transfer switch and a natural gas power generator that if there's a power loss it can switch over. I haven't installed that as of yet. Things that should be done. In the military we had what we called PMS, Preventive Maintenance System. A system should be worked out and written down in case somebody has to come in and take care of your system for you. Everything's straightforward in writing. So preventative maintenance should be, you should be monitoring your water levels, the pH, the ammonia, the nitrate levels. Also, I don't know how or have the means to monitor the iron in the system, the potassium sulfate, and the magnesium, which the plants are all needing this as a supplement. And a lot of times I don't add until I see my plants starting to yellow, and then I'm thinking, oh, it's time to add. So I need to come up with a better system on that. Your planting should be on a schedule. Certain plants, when they mature, they pass up their maximum production capacity, and also they're getting older. Maybe they're not having the same taste. They should be taken out of the system. New plants should always be rotated in. And a lot of times the planting comes from cuttings. So I really like using my deep water culture, the floating raft bed, to start tomatoes. If I have a tomato that I like, the cutting is going to be the same plant, and it's mature. It'll fruit even as a cutting. So you don't have to wait from a seed to grow to reach maturity before it'll start producing. So cutting's really a good way to go. In the wintertime, I have a lot of lack of sunshine. We don't get a lot of sun here in the winter. And I had purchased a number of LED grow lights, and I need to install those. In addition to installing the grow lights, I need to install electrical outlets in my greenhouse, which I don't have. I'm running my fans with extension cords, which that's not the right way to do it. It needs to have proper electrical wiring. Some of the success I had, that was a lot of talking. That's a lot of negative stuff that can go on, but there's a lot of success. The food coming out is very flavorful, very tasty, and you know that it is all organic because you know what you're putting into the system. The successful things that I did, that water leveling system in the sump tank works extremely well. It's extremely simple. There is no maintenance, and it should last for years. The pre-filter system that I have for picking the water up out of the sump tank and running it into my grow towers, that stopped me from a daily cleaning of the tubes. Now it would be maybe once every 2-3 weeks, a spot check to look to see if any have plugged, and then run my cleaning tube or cleaning wire into that drip tube. The other thing that increased a lot of the reliability is I modified my bell siphon and grow bed system. I made a more efficient bell siphon, and I tied 4 grow beds together into one unit, and that cut down my water requirement the amount that the pump has to deliver by a matter of 4 times. So 1/4 the amount of water is being pumped now into the flood and drain system. So that was a big saving. It's a big savings in energy also. Also, fewer mechanical things to be watching and maintaining. The flood and flush tank for the grow towers, and that's something new that I'm using, but it looks like it's going to be very positive. I like how it's wetting the plants down and allowing the roots to air quite a bit before it gets wet again. It's running on about a 6 to a 10-minute cycle. I could time it and know exact, because it is almost like clockwork the way it is running. The grow towers, these foam collars that I use around the crown of the plant, that foam seals that tower very effectively as far as letting water leaking out of the pothole that is cut in there. And by doing that, I'm not losing water out of the system, because if it leaks out of the towers, it's going right onto the floor of the greenhouse. And it's not growing algae on the towers, which I had a lot of algae growing on quite a few towers that would leak. The exceptional item in my greenhouse was what I termed the composting tower. That originally was a strawberry tower that I converted. Well, it's not a composting tower. It's a worm digester. The worms are doing a great job. It's just eating all the dead matter extremely fast. Where if you were composting, you would have 6 months to a year for that compost to break down. This works much more efficient. I want to build a second one, but in a year's time, I have been filling that center tube completely and tight, and I have never had it overflow. It would always work its way down. I've always had room to keep adding more dead material that I would be cleaning up from the greenhouse. One thing that I installed on the inner side of the greenhouse, it's not on the entire greenhouse because I'm not seeing it right here, is I bought the 6-inch square nylon netting, and I tied that, or zip tied it, into near the ceiling on the framework, and any climbing plants, including tomatoes, will be held by the netting. So that's a nice feature in the greenhouse itself. The area that of the greenhouse that I like the most is right here where I'm sitting. I have this lounge area. Neighbors come over, we can sit here, occasionally open a bottle of wine, and spend a lot of time here in the greenhouse, especially when it's freezing cold outside and we can come in here and it's like the tropics. The sunshade was very important. You need to have, I purchased white. I didn't want the black to absorb and heat up and put heat onto my clear plastic overhead. So I wanted white. It makes it bright. It seems to be brighter in here, but it's still blocking 40% of the light. And that's what's needed, and that's what maintains the temperature to no more than 85 degrees on the hottest day. It's pretty hot out today, and it's just about 85. The deep water culture, the floating wrap. Now, my area is fairly small. It's 6 foot by 10 foot. But this area, I grow lettuce in there. If I don't use the lettuce, it gets fed to the tilapia. But I use it a lot for starting other plants from cuttings. And I am really amazed at how well that will root plants. Okay, a number of people ask me what plants were successful in here. There's some plants that didn't do well, that I have a little bit of trouble, and I don't understand why as of yet, but I'm still trying to learn. Plants that did well were, and especially in the winter time, certain plants do better in the winter. Plants that do well were tomatoes, beets, peppers, nasturtiums did extremely well. Mint can take over. Watercress does good. Strawberries, onions, chives, kale, and I don't know how long kale lives, but some of the first kale that I planted is still producing, still growing, so that's almost a year. Arugula does good. Lettuce, spinach, cucumbers is questionable. I have a question mark written next to these. Cucumbers will do good, but it seems like they are so delicate and sensitive to like the gnats and smaller insects that you know, I'll be harvesting and then all of a sudden something's wrong with the plant. So cucumber is one that I'm having trouble with. Cabbages and most herbs do extremely well. Plants that didn't do well, like I said, cucumber is questionable, but it's a lot of plants similar to that. The zucchini, they will be growing really well, thriving real good, but I'm not getting the female blossoms. So I'm not getting fruit. I'll get the male flowers, not the female. And with that also, the eggplants, they look like they're doing well. They have nice flowering on them. I see no fruiting. No fruiting on those plants. Things that I need to do, like I said, I have to put in the wiring outlets for hooking up my fans and the grow lights. I need to also make an auto fish feeder. And then I have a dream list, and on the dream list, first thing is a larger and a taller greenhouse. So I wonder why. Maybe because I want to do some trees. And I would like to fully automate everything and have it computer monitored and computer controlled. And you can do a lot of this with the Arduino circuits. They're relatively cheap. The software is freeware. It was designed in Italy as an educational tool. So you can, there's thousands and thousands of programs already written. And it's all free. You can download any of this stuff. They work extremely well, and they're made in modules that you can stack them to be able to control a lot of power with a real small signal. So that is something for the future. Things that I'll work on. Well, that summarizes just about everything, and sorry it took so long, but hope you have good luck in what you're doing, and nice talking to you, my friends. Bye-bye.